Something massive is happening behind the closed doors of the global silver market, and if you're staring at the COMEX charts in the US or the London markets, you're being lied to right now. While the mainstream media is telling you that silver is struggling to hold its ground, a secret fire is spreading across the East that is about to change the wealth of every single person watching this video. Imagine a world where the same ounce of silver is worth 30% more just by crossing an ocean, and then ask yourself why the banks are working so hard to keep the price down in the West while China is desperately vacuuming up every ounce they can get their hands on. Welcome back to Hidden Bullion. Today we are pulling back the curtain on the great silver disconnect and showing you exactly why the paper price you see on your screen is a total illusion that is about to shatter into a million pieces. If you think you know what drives the price of precious metals, you need to clear your mind for the next 20 minutes, because the reality of 2026 is far more dangerous and exciting than any headline you have read so far. Before we dive deep into the numbers and the secret maneuvers of the Shanghai Gold Exchange, I need to ask you for a quick favor. If you value real boots on the ground financial intelligence and want to stay ahead of the curve in this volatile market, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on all notifications. Because here at Hidden Bullion, we don't just follow the herd, we track the predators. And right now, the biggest predators in the banking world are trapped in a corner they cannot escape from. By subscribing today, you are joining a community of investors who refuse to be left behind when the real silver squeeze finally ignites. Okay, let's get into the heart of the mystery because the clock is ticking and the physical metal is vanishing faster than anyone dares to admit. For decades, the silver market has been controlled by a handful of massive institutions in New York and London using a system of paper contracts that outnumber the actual physical metal by hundreds to one. But as we sit here in 2026, that system is facing a terminal threat from the East. Specifically from the Shanghai Gold Exchange, where silver is currently trading at a massive premium compared to the West. This is not just a small glitch in the system or a temporary price difference. This is a total breakdown of the global pricing mechanism, and it tells us that the physical supply is under extreme stress. While you see silver priced at one level in the United States, the moment you look at the charts in China, you see a completely different reality where buyers are willing to pay 30% more just to secure physical delivery. This massive gap is what we call arbitrage. And in a normal healthy market, it should not exist for more than a few minutes. But this gap has been growing for weeks, and it is screaming at us that the West is running out of silver while trying to maintain a fake price to protect the big banks' short positions. You have to understand that for the power players, in the Western financial system, a high silver price is a nightmare because it signals the death of the dollar and the failure of their paper-based economy. So they use every trick in the book to suppress the price using high-frequency trading and massive paper dumps to keep the numbers low. But China does not care about protecting the dollar or the COMEX banks. They are in a race to secure real tangible assets for their industrial machine and their growing middle class, and they are willing to pay whatever it takes to get it. Right now, on the ground in Shanghai, the demand for physical silver is so high that the local exchange has had to raise margins multiple times, just to slow down the buying pandemonium. But it isn't working. The silver is flowing from the west to the east at a record pace, and once it enters those Chinese vaults, it is never coming back to the London or New York markets. This is the ultimate drain of the system, and it is happening right under the noses of retail investors who are being distracted by stock market volatility and geopolitical noise. The disconnect we are witnessing today is the single most important signal for any silver bull because it proves that the paper price is losing its power to dictate the physical reality. We are approaching a moment of truth where the banks will no longer be able to deliver the metal at these suppressed prices. And when that happens, the price will not just rise, it will explode to catch up with the Eastern reality. If you are not positioned before that gap closes, you will be left watching from the sidelines as the greatest wealth transfer in history moves across the globe. To understand why this gap is a ticking time bomb, we have to look at how the Shanghai Gold Exchange actually operates compared to the Western markets. In London and New York, the silver market is dominated by big bullion banks that trade massive amounts of paper silver that never actually moves. They use these digital contracts to push the price down whenever it starts to gain momentum because a rising silver price threatens the stability of the fiat currency system. But the East has stopped playing by those rules. In Shanghai, the market is physically settled, which means if you buy silver, you expect to take delivery of the actual bars. This demand for physical metal is driving a massive premium because the supply simply cannot keep up with the pace of buying in the Asian markets. Right now, we are seeing a situation where Chinese investors are paying significantly more than the Western spot price just to ensure they have the metal in their possession. This is a huge red flag for the global financial system because it proves the Western price is being artificially suppressed through paper manipulation. The banks in the West are caught in a deadly trap because they have sold hundreds of times more silver on paper than they actually hold in their vaults. As the physical metal flows from the West to the East to take advantage of these higher prices, the COMEX and London vaults are being drained at an alarming rate. Hidden Bullion has been tracking the registered inventory levels, and the trend is clear. The silver is vanishing. We are reaching a point of critical mass where the Western exchanges will no longer be able to honor their delivery promises. When that moment arrives, the paper market will decouple from the physical market entirely, and the price of silver will skyrocket to match the real-world value being set in Shanghai. The global manufacturing sector is also starting to realize this. Companies that need silver for high-tech applications like solar panels and electric vehicles are becoming nervous about their supply chains. They see the silver moving east, and they know that if they don't secure their own stockpiles now, they might be left with nothing but useless paper contracts. This industrial demand is the invisible force that is pushing the market toward a breaking point. Even as the mainstream media tries to distract you with talk of interest rates and inflation, the real story is about the physical shortage of the most important industrial metal on Earth. The banks are desperate to keep the price low so they can cover their short positions before the collapse, but the market forces are becoming too strong to control. Every time they dump paper silver to crash the price, the buyers in the East step in and buy the physical dip with even more aggression. This creates a floor for the price that is constantly rising, regardless of what the digital charts show. You have to look past the daily volatility and understand the long-term structural shift that is happening right now. The era of Western price dominance is coming to an end, and the power is shifting to the physical markets of the East. For an investor, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You can still buy silver at the suppressed Western price today, even though the rest of the world is already valuing it much higher. It is like being able to buy a house at a 30% discount just because the neighbor hasn't updated his listings yet. But that window of opportunity is closing fast as the supply continues to tighten. The great silver disconnect is not just a technical indicator, it is a siren for anyone who wants to protect their wealth from the coming currency reset. As the dollar loses its global standing, the world is returning to real assets, and silver is at the very top of that list. Stay focused on the physical movement of the metal and don't let the paper price shake you out of your position. We are entering a phase where the physical reality will finally overpower the digital deception, and when that happens, the move will be fast and violent. Make sure you are on the right side of this trade before the exit doors are locked. What we witnessed in late January 2026 was not just a normal market correction, it was a complete fracture of the global financial system. While the COMEX price in New York crashed by over 30% in a single day, dropping toward the $78 level, the physical market in Shanghai told a completely different story. In fact, at the very moment the paper price was collapsing, the premiums in China exploded to over 50%. Image showing a side-by-side comparison of COMEX $80 versus Shanghai $120 prices. This means, while Western investors were being shaken out of their positions by digital algorithms, savvy buyers, in Asia were paying the equivalent of $120 an ounce just to get their hands on real silver. Disconnect proves that the paper markets in the West are no longer reflecting reality and are instead being used as a tool for mass liquidation. Hidden Bullion has analyzed the data from the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and the numbers are staggering because the demand for physical delivery hasn't slowed down despite the volatility. The West is trying to convince you that the silver bubble has burst, but the East is showing you that the physical shortage is more severe than ever. You have to ask yourself why the mainstream media only reports on the paper price drop, but stays silent about the massive premiums being paid in India, Dubai, and China. This is a classic case of misdirection where the big banks use a flash crash to trigger stop losses and collect cheap silver from panicked retail investors. But this time, the trick is failing because the physical metal is being vacuumed up by Eastern exchanges almost instantly. Every ounce that is dumped on the COMEX is being bought by someone in Shanghai who is willing to pay a massive premium to secure it. This arbitrage opportunity is so large that it is literally draining the Western vaults of their remaining inventory. We are seeing reports of gold and silver apps in China buckling under the pressure of record trading volume as investors rush to move their wealth into hard assets. The gap between the East and the West is now a permanent feature of the market, and it is screaming that a massive revaluation is coming. If you sell your silver now because you see a red candle on a Western chart, you are essentially giving a gift to the very institutions that are trying to keep you poor. The real price of silver is being discovered in the physical markets of the East, not in the paper manipulation of the West. We are reaching a point where the COMEX and the London bullion market will lose all credibility because they simply won't have the metal to back their digital promises. The divergence we are seeing today is the signature of a market that has split into two separate worlds, and only one of them is based on reality. Stay focused on the physical premiums and the warehouse inventory levels because that is where the truth is hidden. As we move deeper into February, the pressure on the Western system will only increase as they struggle to keep up with the physical demand from a world that is losing faith in paper currencies. The Great Silver Disconnect is the ultimate signal that the endgame for the fiat system has begun, and silver is the key to surviving the transition. The more we look into the internal data of the Western banking system, the more we realize that the banks are not just manipulating the price because they want to, they are doing it because they have to. For years, the major bullion banks have operated on a fractional reserve system for silver where they only keep a tiny percentage of the actual metal compared to the amount of paper contracts they have sold to the public. As we move into February 2026, this system is facing a massive regulatory crisis that the mainstream media is completely ignoring. There are new reporting laws coming into effect that will force these institutions to prove their physical holdings. And this is exactly why we are seeing such violent price swings in the West. The banks are desperately trying to drive the price down to force retail investors to sell their physical metal back to them so they can fill the gaping holes in their balance sheets before the auditors arrive. Hidden Bullion has been following the whispers from the Treasury departments, and it seems they are terrified of what happens when the public realizes the vaults are nearly empty. Meanwhile, in the East, the central banks are doing the exact opposite. They aren't just buying silver, they are creating a new financial infrastructure that bypasses the Western system entirely. This is why the Shanghai premium is so high, because the East is no longer using the dollar as a benchmark for what silver is worth. They are pricing it based on its utility as a strategic resource for the future of their economy. The Federal Reserve in the United States is watching this with growing concern because every ounce of silver that leaves the West for the East is a loss of collateral for the dollar-based system. We are witnessing a global tug of war for the world's most essential industrial and monetary metal. While the average person is worried about high interest rates and inflation, the elites are worried about the physical supply of silver because they know it is the ultimate insurance policy against a currency collapse. The banks use sophisticated algorithms to create flash crashes designed to trigger panic among small holders. But if you look at the volume data, you will see that the smart money is actually buying those dips. They are using your fear to steal your wealth at a discount. But the clock is ticking because the physical supply in the retail market is already drying up. You may see a price of $80 on your screen, but try going to a local dealer and actually buying a 100-ounce bar at that price. The premiums at the coin shop level are starting to reflect the Shanghai reality, which means the paper price is becoming completely irrelevant for anyone who wants to hold real silver. This is the Great Disconnect in its final stage, where the digital world and the physical world move in opposite directions. The banks can print as much paper as they want, but they cannot print silver, and that is their ultimate weakness. Stay focused on the fact that silver is a finite resource, and as the tech war between the West and the East intensifies, the demand for this metal will only go one way. The divergence we see today is a gift to those who understand what is really happening. It is an opportunity to buy the most undervalued asset in human history while it is still being suppressed by a failing banking system. Don't let the noise of the paper markets distract you from the signal of the physical vaults. The game is being played for keeps, and those who hold the metal will be the ones who hold the power when the dust finally settles on this global reset. The evidence is undeniable, and the clock is ticking on the greatest silver disconnect in history. We have seen how the paper markets in the West are failing to reflect the true physical reality, while the East is leading the charge with a massive premium. We have analyzed the industrial hunger that is consuming every available ounce, and we have exposed how the central banks are trapped in their own web of manipulation. Now, the only question that remains is what you're going to do with this information. History shows us that wealth is not destroyed in times of crisis. It is simply transferred from those who hold paper to those who hold real assets. The gap between the East and the West is your final warning signal that the transfer is already underway. Soon, the Western exchanges will have no choice but to let the price of silver explode to meet the global demand or face a total collapse of their system. As an investor, your job is to stay ahead of the crowd and position yourself where the smart money is going. Don't let the daily fluctuations or the rigged charts shake your confidence, because the fundamentals of silver have never been stronger than they are in 2026. We are moving into a period where physical possession will be the only thing that matters, and those who wait for the mainstream media to confirm the rally will be left behind. This is the moment to verify your holdings and make sure you are prepared for the volatility ahead. Here at Hidden Bullion, we are dedicated to bringing you the truth that the big banks want to keep hidden, and we will continue to track every move in the Shanghai and COMEX markets to keep you informed. If you found this deep dive valuable, then please do us a massive favor and share this video with your friends and family on social media, because everyone deserves to know the truth about their financial future. The more people we wake up, the less power the manipulators have over us. Also, we want to hear from you in the comments section below. Do you think the Western banks will finally default on silver delivery, or will they find a way to print more paper to kick the can down the road? Let us know your price predictions for the end of 2026, because your insights help grow this community and increase our reach to help more investors like you. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Hidden Bullion so you never miss a critical update in this fast-moving market. Your support is what keeps this channel going and allows us to dig deeper into the data that matters. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this 20-minute deep dive. It shows that you are serious about your financial education and your future wealth. Stay vigilant, stay physical, and remember that in a world of paper lies, the truth is always found in the bullion. This is Hidden Bullion signing off for today, and we will see you in the next high stakes update.